feminism is what we say it is. And we say that feminism is the problem. Putting the conversation where it needs to be. This is the Vanguard Report.
Greetings, fellow workers in the vineyard. Another week has rolled by, and it is Monday evening once again. Welcome to episode number 14 of the Vanguard Report. On this program, we talk about feminism, and feminism. And why shouldn't we? After all, that is our subject. If our subject was lawn tennis or sheet metal screws, we would talk about lawn tennis or sheet metal screws all the time. But our subject is not lawn tennis or sheet metal screws. Our subject is feminism. So it is perfectly logical that we should talk about feminism all the time. In our view, feminism is one of the biggest human disasters to roll down the turnpike in a good long while. We think that the only sensible thing to do about feminism is to shut it down cold. Full stop. We think this is perfectly feasible. We believe that there are certain procedures which, if diligently followed, will undermine feminism to the point of collapse. So, all that's wanting is the necessary motivation, imagination, demographic numbers, and, let's be honest now, unwavering fanaticism. And these are some of the things that we talk about every week in and week out. I am your host, Fiedelbogen, and joining me tonight is my fellow host, Nick Redding, a rugged, square-shouldered son of the Alberta prairie and a counter-feminist agitator of keen, far-seeing prairie vision. Nick, say a big Alberta prairie hello to the non-feminist men and women of the world.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick Redding. I'm with mensrightsedmonton.com. We've started featuring episodes of the show, The Vanguard Report, on Men's Rights Edmonton YouTube channel, so check it out there.
Yes, thank you, Nick. Everybody go to mensrightsedmonton.com. Give their website a lot of traffic. Hell, man, give their website more traffic than you give mine. And yes, we will be uploading the YouTube versions of old Vanguard reports, starting from number 10 and thenceforward. Also, everybody, and this is required reading, everybody go to cfproject.blog.com to read the required reading for anybody who wants to listen to this radio show on a regular basis and have some backstory on what we're talking about. That's the Poison Manifesto. It's all in there, folks. cfproject.blog.com. So, I'd like to crack open the bottle this evening with a couple of web links. Well, one and then later the other one. The first of these will be appearing in the chat window shortly. That's cue number 1. This is an article from the online salon.com. Last week, we talked about the burgeoning resistance to feminism among non-feminist women, and specifically the Women Against Feminism movement, although don't get the impression that they're the only ones. It goes further than that. Anyway, this week, let's turn our attention to feminist women and how they are responding to counter-feminist heat and pressure in general. Now, here is the link to the article at salon.com. It's written by a certain Katie Mgtow. The title reads as follows: Meet the women of the men's rights movement, why they see feminism as a, quote, personality disorder. Well, Katie, I thank you for adding something to the language. the idea that feminism is a personality disorder. Many of us have instinctively felt for a long time that feminism was more personal than political, but we should be grateful that a feminist supporter has popularized such a telling phrase and made it available to everybody. That's right. Everybody make a note of that. Feminism is a personality disorder. To me, it seems that the glove fits. Anyway, a tagline follows the title. A recent crop of profiles of female MRAs shows that bad ideas are truly gender neutral. Now, this is how they're handling women who take a hard line against feminism. Now, this tagline is like a conclusion placed at the beginning of the argument. So to learn what the argument actually is, you must read the article. And when you do, you will discover what the author is really saying. It's all in there. She is saying that any idea which contradicts feminism is a bad idea. Yes, that is a fair translation from the FemSpeak. The article is packed to the gills with untruth, half-truth, misrepresentation, mere personal opinion, and very little more. Let's do some quick examples, shall we? For example, Katie writes, if you are throwing your weight behind a movement that is de facto led by a man who thinks women beg for rape, or that the very real threat of sexual violence women face is a plot cooked up by jaded feminists, then your batting average is way, way off. All right? Katie seems to be talking about AVFM. That's the idea I get from reading the article. She insinuates that AVFM is a movement. But no, AVFM is a website. Only a website. That is all. There is no AVFM movement. What an idiotic notion. Having cleared up that point, it remains unclear which movement she is actually referring to. Does she mean the entire non-feminist revolution, which is no movement at all, but literally thousands of movements spread all over the world? Is Katie talking about all of these all at once? Is that the movement that she refers to? And does Katie really mean to say that this worldwide social organism is under the direction of some leader, de facto or otherwise? Is she serious? All right. I know damn well that Katie Mgtow is talking about Paul Elam. Now, mind you, I'm no lawyer, but it seems to me maybe we've got the makings of a defamation lawsuit here. You think? She insinuates two very odd things about Paul Elam. One, that he thinks women beg for rape. Two, that he thinks plotting feminists cooked up the threat of sexual violence against women. Got that? Mind you, the author sets no limiting terms or qualifiers on these items, so I must take some liberty in parsing out what she is really saying. Does Katie Mgtow seriously mean to suggest that Paul Elam thinks women habitually walk around saying, please rape me? Is that what women do habitually? Is that what she thinks Paul Elam thinks? And does Katie Mgtow seriously mean to suggest that Paul Elam thinks sexual violence against women never happens, and that feminists plotted to create the mere illusion that it happens? Is that what she thinks Paul Elam thinks? In other words, does Katie Mgtow think that Paul is a fucking idiot? Or is Katie herself the idiot for thinking that she knows what Paul is thinking? Or, what seems most likely, is she just a sloppy liar who can't be arsed to make herself clear? Well, Katie, sloppily lies about plenty of things in her journalistic slop job here, and I haven't got time to muck through all of it. But please do read the article yourself and bear a few things in mind. Katie, although she never admits to being a feminist, is evidently running on feminist subjectivism, which we talked about in the previous episode. Her article seems calculated to put the conversation where it doesn't need to be, namely on the feminist narrative and how that narrative frames the issues. This means that Katie Mgtow can only see the world through a feminist filter, so it oughtn't surprise us that her batting average is way, way off when she presumes to interpret what uppity non-feminist people are actually on about. Those people, be it known, are uppity for very good reasons, for non-feminist reasons, but Katie evidently hasn't gotten the memo yet. Feminists do tend to be slow that way. Worst of all, and quite characteristically for a feminist, she uses the fem-speak word MRA in order to smear all non-feminist men and women who won't keep their mouths shut about feminism. I'm surprised she didn't wedge Elliot Rodger in there somewhere. Anyway, remember that feminists don't talk English, they talk fem-speak, which is a language that only sounds like English on the surface. And yes, Katie Mgtow is a feminist, even if she is too sneaky to admit it. Finally, the thought occurs to me that she could have asked Paul Elam what his opinions were and whether she was representing him correctly. But no, Katie Mgtow didn't do that. After all, she's a feminist, so she feels she has the right to make things up in tricky language and pass them off as reality to an uncritical public. As a rule, that is typical feminist behavior. So, I hope you will read that article and parse it with the techniques we have suggested here. So much for that. Now, I promised you another link to another article. This is the article on rawstory.com. It was written by Amanda Marcotte. It's called A Proposal to End the Misandry Wars. And Amanda, true to form, has written the word misandry in scare quotes. That is what she does. She doesn't think misandry is a real thing, you know. Anyway, I'm going to read off the article, pretty much all of it, bit by bit, and we're going to comment on it as we go along. Nick, are you ready? Very well.
Yes, I am. I am ready.
I know you are, Nick. Now, you're a true son of the Alberta Prairie, and boy, we know how they are. A proposal to end the quote-unquote misandry wars. This is Amanda Marcotte talking here. Oof, saw this one coming. Sarah Bagley of Time is pushing back against all the hilarious misandry, scare quotes again, misandry jokes that feminists online have been making recently in an attempt to inject some comic relief in the endless tide of false accusations that feminists are out to get men. What feminists really hate is the patriarchy, the web of institutions that systemically oppress women. And to tear it down, we need as many allies as we can get. Telling half the population that we hate them, even in jest, is not the way to do that, Bagley argues. This is Sarah Bagley in Time magazine, and she is evidently a feminist, but she doesn't agree with the feminist humor campaign that's going on, and Amanda Marcotte is coming back at Sarah with her own answer here. Dana Evans of Jezebel defends feminists' right to self-defense through humor. So feminists have a sense of humor now. Well, that's good. They're making progress. Do women lose allies by alienating the men who aren't in on the wink-wink joke? Maybe. Are those men worth losing? Probably. So, the feminists are making a joke, and we are supposed to appreciate the joke, and if we don't appreciate the joke, we are men worth losing. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm one of those men who has always been worth losing in the feminist book. Feminists have no more use for me than I have for them, so nothing has really changed here, nothing at all. Nick, don't you think so?
Well, what's changed is that they are now pretending to have a sense of humor.
Pretending.
I mean, Yeah, I don't know how better to put it than that.
They're pretending to have a sense of humor. So, Amanda Marcotte carries on. I can see that this debate will probably go around and around in circles, so I would like to offer a nice, simple solution. Okay, here's where she gets warmed up to her subject. I would like to offer a nice, simple solution. So simple, I'm actually surprised no one has thought of it yet. And while I'm hesitant to speak on behalf of all feminists, I think this proposal is so simple that everyone will sign on immediately. So here it is. And this is where it gets interesting. Feminists will agree to quit it with the misandry jokes if anti-feminists cease making scurrilous accusations that feminists are motivated by man-hatred. Well, if I think somebody is motivated by man-hatred, I will make the accusation. Scurrilous or not, that's the accusation that I will make. And I do believe that feminism is driven by hatred of men or disaffection toward men and things male. I've always said that, and I've made a pretty good case for it. So yes, feminism is an anti-male hate movement. I stand upon that, and I'll stand upon that until the heat death of the universe because I think it's true. But Amanda says she will quit with the misandry jokes, meaning the little funny GIF memes that the feminists are circulating on the internet right about now concerning male tears and kill all men, all that sort of thing. You know, I don't even care about that. That doesn't bother me at all.
No, Beetlebogan. If she promises to stop, that means a whole fucking lot to me.
Really?
Yeah, because the gifs about bathing in male tears, those have really bothered me.
Have they hurt your man feels?
They have caused many beard tears.
Oh, well that's too bad.
And so if she's willing to offer up something so weighty as stopping the misandry gifts, well, maybe we should take that into consideration.
Nick, I think you should get a hold of Amanda right now. You can negotiate a separate piece with Amanda Marcotte on behalf of the non-feminist sector.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a valuable concession that she's giving to us.
Yes, a valuable concession. Nick, you're a funny guy. No, really, Nick, seriously now, sarcasm aside, I don't give a shit about the little jokes and sarcastic gifs that feminists have been making on the internet.
Yeah, no, I would not have heard of them if it wasn't for this article.
That's it. I would not have heard of them if it wasn't for this article. And I think I've heard some distant rumors buzzing around. Yes?
This is feminist leaders selling to the feminist neophytes this idea that they've really got us on the ropes,
whereas the truth is exactly the reverse of that.
Yeah, they're applying some kind of pressure that we really need some reprieve from. So we have to come to the table and negotiate with them.
Yes, please stop putting out those lame little computer gifs on the internet with your jokes about male tears. Actually, Amanda's spiritual twin sister, Jessica Valenti, has done us a great service when she stood on the beach with that sweatshirt that said, "I bathe in male tears."
Yeah, and my approach to that has been, a lot of people want to make hay of that, and I say, you know what, she's doing the same thing that I do. When I did the patriarchy party, is jokingly assuming.
Do you think she learned it from you, that technique?
You know what? I think that maybe I'm being a bit proud here, but I have noticed a bit of a trend from feminist thinkers where they're trying to incorporate humor into what they do, and the type of humor is that they're doing exactly what we did with the patriarchy party. They're trying to say that.
Trying to use reverse psychology there.
Well, not so much. They're assuming what they call a straw man version of their position in order to make fun of it.
A straw man version, but it's a straw man. It's a straw man.
Yeah, it's quite meta. It is, isn't it?
It is. It is very, very meta. Very, very meta. They're slowly metaing themselves out of reality, I think, which can only be good for our side.
Oh, yeah.
Fine, let them meta themselves clear into outer space. Anyway, so
Yeah,
anti-feminists don't. Yes, you're going to say something.
well, yeah, this is an overall trend. I mean, I've spoken with feminists or pro-feminists or whatever who tried to ridicule me for having Girl Rights What as an ally. They've tried to ridicule me for going for jogs.
Having girl rights, what is an ally, is what? A
Is
liability?
somehow just no, just because of they give a very factual description of my relationship with Girl Rights What, but the tone that they put it in was like, this is something that you should be ashamed of.
Oh, you should be ashamed of being allied with girl rights, what?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I am quite
And
deep.
I'm sure they are telling her that she should be ashamed of being allied with Nick Redding.
Yeah, and it's all about tone and insinuation and inflection, and it reflects an overall strategy of taking whatever is happening and framing it in a way that makes them look awesome and us look terrible.
But only in their own minds, and increasingly the outside world is not buying it.
Yeah, yeah. It only appeals to people who
It's
are
like they're
only,
looking in the mirror.
yeah, yeah. It's navel gazing. It's echo chambering. Yeah,
And most of all, it is gross misreading of the outside world, the non-feminist sector.
intentional. It's intentional misreading of the outside world.
I
I
don't
mean,
know that it's intentional, though. I think in a lot of cases it is actual misreading in good faith. Some of it may be intentional, but some of it is down to the fact that they actually don't know what's going on out there in the non-feminist sector.
well, then you give them more credit than I do.
I don't give them credit at all. Quite the opposite. I mean, I think you're the one giving them credit there. I'm saying they got their heads up their ass maybe further than you think they do.
Oh.
But anyway, who knows? Who knows? It's, we got to keep our eyes on this. Just keep watching, and we will update our conclusions as more information comes in. Anyway, gosh, do I have time to read through this whole article? Well, let's see. A little bit further down here, Amanda puts up a short list of some of the, quote, lies that would have to be discontinued in order to make this peace accord work. So we non-feminists have to quit telling lies about feminists. Well, she doesn't understand. We're not telling lies. We're just calling it as we see it. And the burden is on their side, the feminist side, to assure us and to demonstrate to us that these lies are not lies, but these assertions, these accusations that we make are not grounded in reality. The burden of proof is on them. Okay, this is not a court trial. This is the court of public opinion, and we are putting the burden of proof totally on them. We are reversing their tactics, they being the aggressors for all of these years, and we operate by the maxim that the aggressor sets the terms of engagement. And so we are simply spinning the table around and engaging them on the historical terms of engagement, which they have always directed towards us. And those terms of engagement are not necessarily pretty or nice. But anyway, here is her bullet-pointed list of terms that we have to comply with in order to end this war, and then the feminists will stop making those nasty little GIF graphics and circulating them on the web. And boy, what a relief that will be. I'm just so eager for them to stop doing that, Nick. I can't tell you. Okay, bullet point number 1, that feminists want to prosecute rape more aggressively, not because they think rape is a serious crime, but because they want innocent men thrown in jail for reasons. I'm not sure what she means by 4 reasons, but anyway, well, yes, actually, I think that is what feminists want to do. I think that is feminism strategy. The whole feminist war on the rape front is chiefly designed to gain power for women by stripping away legal rights, civil rights from men in the court of law, things like due process, for example. That's just what they're doing. That is the feminist agenda long term. And maybe they think rape is a serious crime, but their real purpose is to damage men as much as they can. And if I'm wrong about that, they better get back to me and tell me in a very polite tone of voice why I'm wrong. And more than that, they better make some moves to correct the situation, which is now so toxic for men in the criminal justice system as regards rape and other crimes. That's a whole talk in itself. Next bullet point, that feminists want there to be consequences for sexual harassment, not because they want women to have equal access to jobs and social spaces, but because they want to ruin a man's good name, which anti-feminists apparently believe requires pushing people's boundaries. Not sure what she means by requires pushing people's boundaries. But yeah, no, I do think that feminists want women to have access to job and social spaces. I mean, that's right along with the project of increasing the power of women. I don't doubt that they want that for women. But I think they also don't mind ruining a man's good name. By hurting men, they put women in a more powerful position. So yes, I think they do want to ruin a man's good name and force men to live in fear. And that's a way of cracking the whip over men, both individually and collectively. Next bullet point, that feminists are out to stop men from having sex generally. Well, I don't think they are out to stop men from having sex generally. I think they're using sex as a way to control men. So it's more complex than that. So that's kind of a straw man there. Okay, a lie that gets told frequently, despite, the fact that feminists put an immense amount of their personal resources toward protecting reproductive rights, i.e. allowing men to have more sex with women. I don't know what the hell she's talking about there in that last part. Nick, do you? No. Okay, I guess we lost Nick there. Protecting reproductive rights like abortion, for example. I don't know what she's talking about there. It's completely garbled. Anyway, next bullet point, that feminists want to get more women in power, not because they think power should be shared equally, but because they are out to steal from men. Well, no, they're not out to literally steal from men. They're out to rob men on many different levels, and that's why they want to get more women in power. They want to get more women in power just to increase the power of women, and by doing that, women are able to take advantage of men and thereby increase the power of women proportionately more and more and more. So, yeah, that one is largely true. Bullet point, that feminists want contraception to be covered by health insurance, not because they want people to be able to have sex without threat of unwanted pregnancy, which benefits men. Having sex without threat of unwanted pregnancy, yeah, that benefits men, okay, but because they're greedy sluts who want to steal from men. Now, I don't know what Amanda's talking about here. Now, she's mixing up women in general with feminists in particular. That's a totally garbled thing. I'm not even going to spend any time on that because it doesn't make any sense what she's saying.
It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to make sense. It's like an acid trip.
Oh, it's an acid trip. Now, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Maybe if you take LSD while you're reading this, it'll suddenly settle down into normal reality again by a kind of reversal.
Okay, when everybody remembers our 2013 Slut Walk video where we went down and said that we loved sluts?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, and everybody remembers that Ryan Vanderhoek's accomplice in his brilliant 25-minute long video was named Doug Brinkman of CI Activism. Now, a little while after that, Doug Brinkman started distributing posters that had an image of Captain Redneck from Men's Rights Edmonton with a sign that said, "I heart boobs." And he infused that with a classical painting, and he infused the infusion with the word rape. Now, it makes no logical fucking sense, but you can clearly see that it implicates Captain Redneck as a rapist. Taking his picture with another picture and just putting the word rape on it, in my mind, is pretty clearly gutless,
cowardly, spineless,
insinuation,
low-down, side-winding trick.
Yeah, it's an insinuation of being a rape. But the thing is, the nature of this kind of artwork, or artwork if you want to call it that, the nature of this kind of insinuation is that they're actually not saying anything at all, but they're just kind of jamming a bunch of ideas together and throwing it at a person.
Yes, it's like putting up metal chaff to confuse the radar, that sort of thing. Yes, yeah, they're good at what they do. I got to give them credit. I admire what they do. I think we can learn a lot from them. They've had years and years to practice all of this. And, I see the time is getting along. There's a bit of meat left in the article here, but I want to keep the hour on track. So I'm going to draw this part to a close. I hope everybody will go and read that article by Amanda Marcotte if you haven't done so already. And I believe the link is in the chat window. So now let's go to a music break. James, roll it. All right. Welcome back from the music break. This is the Vanguard Report, episode number 14. I am your host, Fiedelbogen. I am here tonight with my fellow host, Nick Redding, man of the Alberta Prairie. Now, since we have a... Wait a minute. No. That's not what I wanted to say. Tonight. Okay, tonight we are going to talk about men going their own way, often known by the unwieldy acronym Mgtow. I always pronounce that as Mgtow. It's easier. Now, unlike MRA, a popular term that emerged from the mist circa Y2K and carries no intellectual pedigree, Mgtow is a consciously thought-out social movement that started with a physical meeting of persons in October 2004 in the town of Hickory, North Carolina. A manifesto was drafted on that occasion. Mgtow was formed in reaction to the suffocating club atmosphere of the proto-men's rights web forums at the turn of the century. Among other difficulties, those venues were stifled by timid political correctness, lack of intellectual development, and a tendency for female participants to show up and cause disruption in one form or another. The new Mgtow concept was meant to overcome such hindrances, and it seems that a blossoming of individual gumption and creative thinking occurred. In the years directly following 2004, individual blogs popped up in considerable numbers. It was the first big move away from the forums, and a number of flamboyant personalities made their mark in those days. Now, these people are largely forgotten now. Does anybody still remember Fred X, or the Eternal Bachelor, or Captain Zarband? Why, I feel like I'm talking about ancient Rome when I rattle off those names. Since that time, the Mgtow concept has drifted from its roots, or dragged its anchor, if you will. However, the following narrative, taken from the No Man blog, will give you some idea of the original character of the movement. Despite all assertions to the contrary, Mgtow, men going their own way, was never specifically about the marriage strike, nor of swearing off all women and subsequent society. In fact, the Mgtow Manifesto makes no mention of a marriage strike, even though many also supported it. No, Mgtow was, as is stated in the manifesto, about instilling masculinity in men, femininity in women, and working toward limited government. Go ahead, read the whole manifesto. It is not long. You won't even find the word marriage mentioned in it. So much for Mgtow being about the marriage strike and lowly deviant omegas hiding out in their basements. Many old-school Mgtows were actually married themselves, making the marriage strike a completely irrelevant point to identify them with. All right. Here is something that Ragnar Jensen, one of Mgtow's 3 founding fathers, shared with me just today on Skype. And he says, "Yes, sir, I'm married for 20 years and everything they say about marriage is true. I just don't believe that marriage has anything to do with going your own way. Some men see Mgtow as a purely material thing, while I see it as a more mental or spiritual thing. When one's understanding of life has matured into manhood, it will be very much like stated in the Mgtow Manifesto. That's my humble opinion, and it doesn't exclude the opinion of others who differ in this matter, because you will have to see Mgtow as multifaceted. It can have many forms. The only form of Mgtow which I do not like is the purely materialistic one, where men turn themselves into PUA sex maniacs or gold-hoarding hermits. To me, life is something you have to get out and take part in. At the same time, there is no doubt in my mind that men are the ones who create society by forming bands of brothers. This, in turn, is what constitutes manhood." And that is from Ragnar Jensen, one of the 3 founding members of the Mgtow movement. He was kind enough to share that with me just today, not more than 4 or 5 hours ago. All right, that sets the stage. So let's fast forward from 2004 to 2014. It makes my head spin to think about it. From the proto-men's rights movement existing in scattered internet enclaves to the non-feminist revolution spreading across the planet everywhere. Boy, that's some dramatic transformation, all right. And the movement called Mgtow is still with us. It has mushroomed, and the reach of it is now international, including such far-flung places as Europe, India, Latin America, and the Far East. In the process of getting bigger, Mgtow has changed. It is no longer the same animal that it was in Hickory, North Carolina in 2004. Let me repeat something from the passage I recently cited. Many old school Mgtows were actually married themselves, making the marriage strike a completely irrelevant point to identify them with. Yes, the original Mgtow concept made no mention of the marriage strike. And that makes a stark contrast to what we see nowadays, a social club centered almost entirely around the idea of not getting married, or even shunning relations with women altogether. That is what Mgtow has effectively turned into. Ask the average person of the lay public what Mgtow is, and presuming that person knows anything whatever about it, they will nearly always say something like, a bunch of guys who don't want to get married. Mgtow from the outside also looks like a bunch of guys who whine obsessively about women and relationships, even though they have sworn off women and relationships. They can't seem to make up their minds. Oh, the irony! This, for better or worse, is the popular notion of Mgtow. This is the perception. This is the image that most people carry in their brains. And you must admit that this image hasn't got very much dignity or gravitas about it, has it? In fact, I would even call it downright demeaning. A bunch of guys on the internet whining obsessively about women when they have supposedly sworn off women. This is what the world sees, and let's be brutally frank, it looks like a low comedy. It looks like a silly, contemptible farce. And you know what else? I speak as a friend. Yes, I say these harsh things because I care. Men going their own way, men shucking off the burden of upholding civilization because civilization treats them as disposable fodder. Men with the potential to organize as a social force to extort better treatment for themselves. My God, that's serious stuff with world historic gravitas galore. And yet, what does the world see? A bunch of dudes bitching about bitches on the internet. So when you consider the world historic magnitude of what is going on here, that's ironic as hell, don't you think so? All right, when we talk about Mgtow, we are really talking about two separate things. First, there is something which we call the Mgtow Club. This means the real-life tribe that clusters around the word Mgtow in a way they find significant, and by so doing give the movement an actual, tangible human face. When the average member of the lay public speaks of Mgtow, it is really the Mgtow Club which they refer to. Next, there is the Mgtow Principle. This means Mgtow as pure essence, as pure idea, or as an objective force in history. In more direct terms, the Mgtow Principle is a description of the existential state of the male sex class and the life policy which a lot of men are following in response to present historical conditions. I, Fiedelbogen, am a supporter of the Mgtow Principle. In saying this, I speak purely as a philosopher and as a pragmatic observer of the human condition. I do not speak as a man or as a member of any presumptive club male, nor do I speak as a member of the so-called men's rights movement, since I am not a member of that movement. Are we clear about that? I speak only as a philosopher when I say that men as a political sex class are receiving the dirty end of the stick in the present age of history. This is happening. This is objectively real. And this is now. As a philosopher, I say it is merely predictable that when a demographic group is targeted for second-class treatment, members of that group will eventually decide to, yes, go their own way. And so it is with men and boys in fast-growing numbers. The word Mgtow might be unknown to most of them, but they instinctively know what is going on. They sense it, and they are quite understandably going their own way. They know in their guts that the social contract is broken, and so they are looking out for number one. And speaking as a pragmatic philosopher of the human condition, I do not blame them one little bit. I believe that they are morally correct to adopt the policy which they are adopting. Under the circumstances, how could I say otherwise? All right, so much for the Mgtow principle. Back to the Mgtow Club, that checkered group of people who have achieved notoriety on the internet for their narrow obsession with the marriage strike and their harsh words about women. This group, for better or worse, has become the public face of Mgtow. They are the ones who ask, "Are you a Mgtow?" And when they say that, they are really saying, "Are you a member of the Mgtow Club?" And my answer would be, no, I am not a Mgtow. I do not associate with the Mgtow Club. Rather, I am a pragmatic philosopher of the human condition, and as such, I am a respecter of the Mgtow principle in its world historic and political aspect. Mgtow is not something that you are. That's the Mgtow Club. Mgtow is something that you do and something that you live. That is the Mgtow principle. And yes, the so-called marriage strike can be part of this, but it is nothing more than a part. So, if Mgtow is to be something more lofty than a bunch of guys on the internet whining about women, then it will need to be rebooted and rebranded in some way. And how? Well, I don't exactly know. But speaking as a philosopher and as a friend, I think this ought to happen. I really, really do. I suggest that we stop thinking of Mgtow as a social club with membership rules and learn to understand it more abstractly as a primordial force of history, which, although symptomatic of a social crisis, can be harnessed to advantage. Certainly, it is time to ditch all of the woman-centric discourse which sounds so terribly silly and undignified. And might I modestly suggest that the Mgtow movement phase out its visible public profile and transition toward the model of a secret society? Hey, it's just a thought, just a straw tossed up in the wind. Well, James, how close to the brick wall of death are we?
You are 5 minutes.
5 minutes. You know, we don't have time, realistically, for any phone calls in 5 minutes. That's just too crowded. So, Nick, anything you want to say in the next 5 minutes?
Uh-oh. Did we lose Nick?
Did we lose Nick?
I've still got him showing.
Well, anyway. Everybody go look at this article. James, that would be cue number 3, I believe.
Already on it.
That's from the Essex Chronicle in the UK. Blackmailed Chelmsford tube worker. A man was blackmailed with the threat of a rape accusation, but he finally got out of it. And I wish I had the text of the story right here in front of me. Oh, let's see. Nah, I haven't got it. Nick, are you back yet? Apparently not. Well, everybody, go read that article about the man who was blackmailed with a false rape accusation threat. And then ask yourself why false accusation of rape doesn't really happen and it's not really a problem. You got to see the truth one piece at a time, and those pieces add up, and they keep adding up until you get the full picture. And then finally, when you see the full picture, you cannot deny the truth any longer. That's just the way it works. And we got to keep chipping away at this grain by grain. And I think we're just about at the brick wall of death now. So I want to remind everybody, go to cfproject.blog.com. If you haven't already done so, read the Poison Manifesto. It's there in all of its glory. And if you want to get a hold of us here at the Vanguard Report, we do have an email address that is vanguardreport@usa.com. Once again, that's vanguardreport@usa.com. anything you want to say to us, say it to us. You got something you want to share, share it. You got something you want to tell us, tell it. You got inside information, you got a hot scoop about something, you got a project you want to propose, you got an idea for something you want us to talk about on the program. Whatever's on your mind, send it along to Vanguard Report at USA.com. That is our email address. James, I think the wall of death must be just about 2 inches in front of our nose now. Am I right?
Yes.
All right, folks. It's been great. We got to wrap it up. This is episode 14, and we're going to wind it down now. But we'll see you again next week, 7 days from now, for episode 15 of the Vanguard Report. In the meantime, never forget, feminism is what we say it is. Never forget that. Everybody, take care, and I'll see you next week. Logical that we should talk about feminism all the time. In our view, feminism is one of the biggest human disasters to roll down the turnpike in a good long while. We think that the only sensible thing to do about feminism is to shut it down cold. Full stop. We think this is perfectly feasible. We believe that there are certain procedures which, if diligently followed, will undermine feminism to the point of collapse. So, all that's wanting is the necessary motivation, imagination, demographic numbers, and, let's be honest now, unwavering fanaticism. And these are some of the things that we talk about every week in and week out. I am your host, Fiedelbogen, and joining me tonight is my fellow host, Nick Redding, a rugged, square-shouldered son of the Alberta prairie and a counter-feminist agitator of keen, far-seeing prairie vision. Nick, say a big Alberta prairie hello to the non-feminist men and women of the world.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick Redding. I'm with mensrightsedmonton.com. We've started featuring episodes of the show.
The tagline is like a conclusion placed at the beginning of the argument. So to learn what the argument actually is, you must read the article. And when you do, you will discover what the author is really saying. It's all in there. She is saying that any idea which contradicts feminism is a bad idea. Yes, that is a fair translation from the FemSpeak. The article is packed to the gills with untruth, half-truth, misrepresentation, mere personal opinion, and very little more. Let's do some quick examples, shall we? For example, Katie writes, if you are throwing your weight behind a movement that is de facto led by a man who thinks women beg for rape, or that the very real threat of sexual violence women face is a plot cooked up by jaded feminists, then your batting average is way, way off. All right? Katie seems to be talking about AVFM. That's the idea I get from reading the article. She insinuates that AVFM is a movement. But no, AVFM is a website. Only a website. That is all. There is no AVFM movement. What an idiotic notion. Having cleared up that they're the only ones. It goes further than that. Anyway, this week, let's turn our attention to feminist women and how they are responding to counter-feminist heat and pressure in general. Now, here is the link to the article at salon.com. It's written by a certain Katie McDonough. The title reads as follows. Meet the women of the men's rights movement. Why they see feminism as a, quote, personality disorder. Well, Katie, I thank you for adding something to the language. the idea that feminism is a personality disorder. Many of us have instinctively felt for a long time that feminism was more personal than political, but we should be grateful that a feminist supporter has popularized such a telling phrase and made it available to everybody. That's right. Everybody make a note of that. Feminism is a personality disorder. To me, it seems that the glove fits. Anyway, a tagline follows the title. A recent crop of profiles of female MRAs shows that bad ideas are truly gender neutral. This is how they're handling women who take a hard line against feminism. Now, this
Vanguard Report on Men's Rights Edmonton YouTube channel, so check it out there.
Yes, thank you, Nick. Everybody go to mensrightsedmonton.com. Give their website a lot of traffic. Hell, man, give their website more traffic than you give mine. And yes, we will be uploading the YouTube versions of old Vanguard reports starting from number 10 and thenceforward. Also, everybody, and this is required reading, everybody go to cfproject.blog.com to read the required reading for anybody who wants to listen to this radio show on a regular basis and have some backstory on what we're talking about. That's the Poison Manifesto. It's all in there, folks. cfproject.blog.com. So, I'd like to crack open the bottle this evening with a couple of web links. Well, one and then later the other one. The first of these will be appearing in the chat window shortly. That's cue number 1. This is an article from the online salon.com. Last week, we talked about the burgeoning resistance to feminism among non-feminist women, and specifically the Women Against Feminism movement, although don't get the impression
Feminism is what we say it is. And we say that feminism is the problem. Putting the conversation where it needs to be. This is the Vanguard Report.
Greetings, fellow workers in the vineyard. Another week has rolled by, and it is Monday evening once again. Welcome to episode number 14 of the Vanguard Report. On this program, we talk about feminism, and feminism. And why shouldn't we? After all, that is our subject. If our subject was lawn tennis or sheet metal screws, we would talk about lawn tennis or sheet metal screws all the time. But our subject is not lawn tennis or sheet metal screws. Our subject is feminism. So it is perfect